Good evening and welcome to the number one Group of Five college football show in the world. This is the Group of Five guys. And our mission, if you're new here, is to be the voice for the Group of Five football programs, voice that the mainstream sports media absolutely refuses to be. We need your help to do that. We need you to follow us on all the social media platforms at Group of Five guys. Go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your best podcasts. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a 5-star rating and a review. Most importantly, share it with your family and friends. On this Monday night episode, we talk a little bit about the combine, winners and losers who made some money from the weekend. We're going to talk about the American Conference schedule release and plenty more. Hope you enjoy the show. This is the Group of Five guys, and we are coming to you live.
I admire how much focus and energy you're putting on this part of college football.
We looked at each other, we was like, Mike, the best place to be is a Group of Five. So I'm sitting here with the Group of Five guys, right?
Troy has won, it's been a winner, and it's a special place, so it's why you want the job.
But it's a ton of fun to watch a guy go to the NFL from a Nevada or a Colorado State or a Middle Tennessee or an App State, and fans follow that kid.
It was across there. You want to have this thing packed out, have the student section packed out, giving those guys hell on the sideline. I mean, that's part of it. I mean,
win or lose, like we're winning the tailgate.
There's no better place to be developed in this country than Boise State.
Boy, that new intro fires me up, Jeff. I got chills. I got almost as many chills as I had the other night when John Cena turned heel at the Elimination Chamber.
I mean, who'd have thought it? Yeah, it was Elimination Chamber. I mean, we've been waiting for that for years.
Since John Cena started.
I know.
I mean, honestly.
And, kudos to him. This is his last run, I think. And for him to turn heel like that, him and The Rock.
Yeah.
Still going strong.
The Rock's done it. He's been there, done that with the heel role. Not necessarily this whole, final boss, badass kind of thing. Also, shout out to Triple H for letting it happen. I don't think old Vince McMahon let Cena do it. Now, he's going to have to do something about his haircut if he's going to be the heel. It's a little bit,
Yeah. Maybe that's part of his shtick. I don't know. He's trying to be as unlikable as possible, and he just has that nice little bald spot. Right,
well, and what I think they're realizing is, the fans are they're gonna cheer, like he's gonna be the heel, the bad guy, but the fans he's gonna get a crazy pop every time he comes out from here on out. But anyway, it's not about wrestling, but I just as the true Group of Five football fans are typically got a little wrestling blood in them.
Something about football and professional wrestling has always just gone hand in hand together.
Yeah. Just the passion.
Same demographic. Love a good show.
Yeah. I saw the people, there's a lot of faces in the crowd. It was very similar crowd reaction to when Lesnar beat Taker at Mania.
Yes.
It was like the big eye guy, That's what I was thinking. But anyway, we got a lot to talk about, Jeff. Combine over the weekend. It's tax season. I mean, people are spending money the older I get, Jeff, why do I have to go through all of the effort to file taxes when they already know what I owe or don't owe? And if I do it wrong, which is a pure guess, I mean, honestly, I take in my forms and then it's a pure guess. If I get it wrong, I'll get a letter in 5 years saying how I got it wrong, and they'll charge me for it anyway. So why do I have to go through the effort and then pay a guy to do it for me?
It's unconstitutional, Sprouse. Don't get me started on this whole deal. I want to tear the whole thing down. Let's just get rid of taxes. Let's go to the tariff system. I promise you it'll all work out.
Well, we got to talk combine. A lot of guys not working out or, doing some of the stuff just there for the interviews. But who anybody off the top of your mind made some money this weekend, you think?
I think a couple people potentially. I thought Torrey Horton and Jalen Royals both had great 40 times as receivers, right? That's what you want to see. Horton had 4.41, Royals had 4.42, both coming off injuries that kind of sidelined them towards the back half of the season last year. Obviously, I think Harold Fannin confirmed the athlete that he is. I thought he did a great job. And I think Caleb Ransaw, I think he made some money. I think he bumped his stock up and did some good things. And then the last one I really had was not a lot of quarterbacks threw. Seth Hennigan threw, and I thought he threw pretty well. They don't show a bunch of it. It's really hard to get like footage of these guys and their workouts, but I thought the balls that he threw were on time. They were on the right spot. So I think he potentially helped himself out.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think Ransaw going 4.33 on the 40. Really, really impressive. That's the other thing. You ever being like, even in college and even today, you go ask like Joe Blow, that was like relatively athletic, what they run the 40, and they're all going to tell you they run a 4.5. That's just like the number that everybody's. And I promise you don't. Like, I don't think, and then like there's guys that'll run 4.5 at the combine, and Twitter goes nuts on how slow they are. And I'm like, I don't think people realize. Like, I was thinking about this today. What do you think average Joe non-athlete would run a 40 in? Like 6. That was what I
would say mid
at
fives.
least. Yeah. And then I think like, 25 to 35-year-old, maybe used to be athlete, is to me probably running 5.
I would say right around 5, maybe cracking 4.9.
4.9 if you were really fast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you were a 4.5 guy in college, like maybe you're running 4.8, 4.9 right now.
Well, you saw the Barstool guys did their little combine, and those guys talk about some bad bodies.
Yeah, you guy got stapled by 135 pounds. Jeff, I was doing 135 in like 6th grade, I think.
This is why we wanted to do like a media combine just to see who could do what.
Jeff, I think my wife could do 135.
Oh, I know Scarlett could do 135 easily.
And then she sure as hell wouldn't get stapled by it. I mean, just absolutely pinned to the bench.
And she wouldn't fall halfway down running her 40. Shout out Big Cat. Took a little spill.
I mean, oh, you truly love to see it. I mean, these are the guys. These are the guys that are watching the combine, and they're going to get mad when their team drafts somebody because their hand is a centimeter too small, or their 40 time wasn't what they thought. But,
I do want to shout out Upton Stout for the Western Kentucky, led all corners with 21 reps on the bench. Big time.
21 reps is impressive for a guy that size.
It is.
I mean, I think, your linemen, your average lineman, I don't know what it was this year, but I mean, they're probably 26, 27 reps on 225. The big time reps, you're getting 30 maybe. 21 for a defensive back is ridiculous. And I think he made himself some money. He looked pretty good too.
Yeah, I think so. And then, Darius Alexander was high on a lot of people's boards, but, kind of confirmed it, I think, was second in the bench and with 28 reps. It's pretty good.
28 reps, and he ran a 4.95 at 300 plus pounds.
That's moving.
And then his broad jump. Yeah, you confirmed that he's a guy that's super athletic at his size. He was impressive. I thought, honestly, it's a combine. It's hard to tell, but I thought all the group of 5 guys performed well. I thought all the receivers caught it well. Nick Nash, he's not a burner by any means. I don't remember what he ran in the 40, but that gauntlet drill that they do, where they're catching it from either side.
Yeah, dropping.
I mean, every ball that was thrown his way, it was like suction cups, dude. Just caught it with the hands, arms extended. I mean, he just looked like a sure-handed guy.
Yeah. I will say this, though. I think the combine it's a little overhyped. I mean,
it is.
I don't really know if you can really gauge that much. I'm sure they interview a lot of these guys. I'm more of a fan of the Senior Bowl. Hate that the Senior Bowl is losing our guy, Jim Nagy, by the way.
I know. Interested to see what they do there. Look, Senior Bowl. I mean, if you're looking for a couple of guys, you know what I mean? Maybe we'll have an all group of 5 Senior Bowl. I'll tell you that much.
No question.
But we got to talk this AAC schedule, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I like as a whole. This is a generalization here. What I like the most about this schedule is there are so many regional and in-state non-conference games that these teams have all been able to put together. Charlotte playing App State and North Carolina. East Carolina playing NC State, playing Coastal. FAU playing FIU, playing FAMU. Memphis playing Arkansas. You got North Texas playing Lamar. Rice playing Houston. South Florida playing Florida and Miami. I mean, UTSA playing Texas State, playing Texas A&M, Tulane, and South Alabama. Nice regional deal there. And then that Ole Miss game. We'll talk about that later. And then Tulsa playing Oklahoma. I mean, they all got an in-state or at least a regionally close proximity game against a non-conference opponent. And I think we need more of that. I mean, hell, if we're making conference games be 1,000 miles apart, let's at least get something where we can have some regional games to it.
No, you're absolutely spot on. And that's what college football was built on, especially before, flying was like so readily available and easy and affordable. Like, I want to say affordable because it's not, but at the level that they're doing now, everybody used to bus everywhere. So you play everybody in your region or the next state over where you could get to them. So I love it. I love it. It's a kind of, homage to the past, if you will. And we need more of that stuff.
Well, and it's like we talked about 2 weeks ago when we had Coach Drinkle at Central Michigan on, when he talked about, recruiting, and a lot of the recruiting pitch is, hey, look, you can drive a 2-hour road trip to watch your kid play in an away game versus having to fly across the country. And so a lot of these games, will allow for that, at least at the beginning of the season. And you want that, especially in the non-conference when, you got, some control over it, right? It's not just like, well, we got to play them. They're in the conference. And shout out to the other teams that are doing it. You got to give credit. North Carolina, as much as we want to hate on them, they've been playing App State and Charlotte and East Carolina. They've been playing these guys every year. They're playing somebody. Same with NC State. So credit to them also, because we see all too often that, they're not going to play the top group of 5 teams. Big shout out to Florida and Miami playing South Florida. Miami, that's back-to-back years playing South Florida. And, South Florida, a lot of expectations again. We'll get into that here in a minute. But like the schedule overall, Jeff.
Yeah, I do too. And before we move on and really dive deep, if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching on Facebook, hop over to the YouTube channel. There's always a great live chat that goes back and forth. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way, whenever we go live, it comes right to you, notifies you right on your little top of your screen there. But we got a couple people in there. Joe Judkins is in there. Morgan's in there. Matthew Hardigan, Scotty B, and he had a good one too. We forgot. Frazier from UTSA, long corner, ran a 4.37. I think he hopped on some people's boards. You're muted.
I'm sorry about that. Everybody did well, I thought. I mean, and even your guys that didn't do the full workouts. I mean, Genty is getting a ton of hype. He's on every interview right now. But then Mike Green at Marshall couldn't run due to tight hamstring, but did well on the bench. And, you saw his clip from the press conference where, they said, what makes you think you're the best here? And all he said, one-word answer. He said, film, which, watch the film.
Hey, big shout out in the chat right now. AAC Commissioner Tim Pernetti. What's going on, Tim?
The YouTube.
Tuning in. Appreciate you, brother.
Tim's going to be upset at me again when I have my Army-Navy take here in a little bit. I was hoping he wouldn't get on so I could say it in peace. No, I've been educated. I've been educated now on it, Jeff. But let's talk about these schedules, Jeff. I mean, and you know where I'm going for the toughest draw in this thing. I mean, I don't think, Jeff, there's a team in the country, even the defending champ Ohio State Buckeyes, if they woke up on a Saturday and saw this for their first 3 games, I think they're in a little bit of panic mode too. But the South Florida Bulls, I mean, you get Boise State, you get your premier group of 5 coming to Tampa, but then you're in Gainesville, then you're in Miami at at Florida, at Miami. I mean, there's not a team in the country that looks at that and isn't thinking, well, what in the hell? So that's another. I mean, and they had a draw like this last year. Last year was a little bit different. Last year they had a break. They played Bama early, then I think they had Southern Miss, then Miami, but then they had their in conference. Their conference schedule is a little lighter this year versus last year. Last year they had that stretch where after they played Bama and Miami, they had Tulane, Memphis. So they avoid Tulane this year, and they don't play Memphis until a little bit later. But yeah, I mean those first 3 weeks. I mean,
that's a brutal draw, right? And if for a lot of these teams who get a draw like that, can you stay healthy through that stretch? And we've seen at times South Florida's had an issue. I know Byron Brown's been hard to stay on the field. So hopefully he can get back healthy and they can get through that okay. And then hit conference and hit the ground running. But you mentioned it. They got to go on the road at Memphis, on the road at Navy. They do get UTSA at home. And then, they avoid Tulane and avoid ECU. I think they're going to be a tough matchup this year as well. So it's not easy for the South Florida Bulls. They got high expectations to begin with. They had them last year. A lot of their fans feel like they've underachieved, haven't reached the mark that they've gotten. But guys, you got to be a little realistic. That's absolutely brutal.
This is, I'm going to compare it, Jeff, to middle for the last decade. This is where, and again, any team in the country, if any team in the country goes 3-0 right there, I mean, you think you're winning the national championship. If you go 2-1 right there, you're ecstatic. If you go 1-2, you're pretty confident about the rest of the way.
Yeah.
You go 0-3, fans, stay with them, because guess what? You're still undefeated in conference, even if you go 0-3 right there.
Yeah. No, you got to hang in there. And just to be fully transparent, that's how it was with middle a few years ago when we opened up with just an absolute brutal schedule to start. It's like, okay, once we get into conference, we can, settle down and get into it and rattle off 5-6 wins. So Bull fans, just be patient. All right. See how the start of the season opens up. And, but to kick off the season, Boise at home, it doesn't get much better than that group.
We got to start looking at a trip to Tampa for that one. I think it's on a Friday night too. Maybe a Thursday game. I can't recall. But anyway, if you're a South Florida fan, and I know Alex Golish and Micah James and the staff down there, they want the expectations.
No doubt.
They know that means they've improved. But before Golish got there, this is a team that won one game against an FBS opponent over like the course of 3 years. So you're now a bowl team every year, and you got these expectations, and then you start with this kind of schedule. Again, I'm not saying they're going to go 0-3 there. Maybe. They'll probably be underdogs in all three of those games. Probably be double-digit underdogs in all three of those games. So, stay with them, because then you get South Carolina State, you get Charlotte, you get North Texas, you get FAU. Now you're 4-3. With a big conference game against Memphis.
Yeah.
So, don't hit the panic meter early is what I'm saying if you're a South Florida Bulls team. And again, the good news is they avoid Tulane and they avoid Army in the conference.
Is that who you had as your number one toughest draw, you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's who I had to.
Do you have another one?
I do. I think ECU has a pretty tough draw. I mean, you do, NC State is a very winnable Power 4 matchup, but you're on the road, right? Rivalry, kicks off the season. They're going to be fired up. Should be a sold out crowd. You have Coastal on the road as well. That'll be a great matchup. I think Coastal's going to improve. And then you get BYU at home. BYU is probably going to be ranked, right? So you got 3 tough matchups, and then you immediately get Army, who Army has a lot of question marks, but they're going to be physical regardless. So, NC State's going to be physical. Coastal's going to be physical. BYU with those Poly boys, they're going to be physical. And then you got to play Army right off the rip. I mean, that is a tough.
Jeff, and then you go to Tulane.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to say. You get a bye, and then you got to play Tulane. So, I mean, right off the bat, Blake Carroll's they got to be ready to rock and roll and hit it. And then it lightens up a little bit down the stretch, but they got to play Memphis and UTSA back to back. So I know ECU is going to be, their fans are going to be fired up, ready to go, want to have a great season. Guys, it's a tough stretch to kick off the year.
You know, what I will say though about ECU is you go beat NC State.
No question.
You're gonna beat the Campbell Camels. You'll probably be favored against Coastal, I think. BYU be tough, but I mean, you got a chance to make a lot of noise right there. See, where South Florida, I think, yeah, to be honest, I just think it's unlikely that they win any of those first three. East Carolina, I mean, I think
I'm not saying
I
they
think
can't win. I'm just saying it's a tough draw right off the bat. You have no time to get tuned up, and they keep limiting fall camp, how many practices you have, and it's the same for NC State. So like everybody at this point in college football has the same amount of practices, all that stuff. So I get that, but there's no room for error. You got to come out and play like pretty mistake-free football if you want to win those games, especially in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I the only thing I'll say about that is I think they're more likely to be 3-0 than they are to be 0-3.
Yeah,
where South Florida, I think they're more likely to be 0-3 than they are anything else.
That's why I had them at number 2.
But that is that their stretch goes a little longer too.
Yeah,
South Florida, they get by that Miami game, and then it's relatively light for now, right? I mean, because listen, Charlotte, I should get the hat on, by the way.
Shout out Charlotte.
Tim Alvin will come in there and turn Charlotte around real quick.
Well, they were the other one that I had as my number 3 toughest straw.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that game against App State, I mean, we don't know, both, new coaches, new program, right? Neutral site would, by the way, I'm not really a fan of the neutral site. I'm going to just be honest with you. I wish that game was on campus.
Well, it's in Charlotte. You know what I mean? So why not put it on our campus at Charlotte?
I don't know. Just me.
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably sell an extra 20,000 tickets,
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, they got, you open up with App State, Monmouth, you should be fine. North Carolina, that's going to be a physical game. They get Georgia late in the year, which, I mean, Georgia's just one of those teams. They're physically different. They're in the top 4 or 5 teams in the country, right? And then, they have to play Army, South Florida, Tulane, 3 of the top programs from a year ago. And then, my biggest worry is just, again, physically, can you hold up against Army, Tulane, Georgia, North Carolina? I mean, that's half your season. That these are big physical programs that Tim Alvin's going to have his hands full.
I mean, yeah, those last 4 weeks, boy,
it's tough.
At ECU, home versus UTSA, at Georgia, at Tulane.
That's brutal.
You better hope you start. You better hope you start good, because that's going to be a tough one to end it.
Jimmy and the boys.
Now what about on the lighter side? Who do you think's got the easiest draw?
I mean, I think without question, it's Navy. I mean, if you just go right down it, you got VMI, UAB, Tulsa, then you get a bye. And you go Rice, Air Force, Temple, another bye, and FAU. So that stretch right there to start the season. Oh. And I know this was last year. New teams, a lot of new head coaches, new players coming in, right? But those teams have a combined record of 22-51. So just right off the bat, have a nice slate to get, kind of get ramped up to work some of those kinks out. They do got to play North Texas, Notre Dame, South Florida, and they finish with Memphis. That's a tough stretch. But college football, a lot of it's momentum. If you can build up to that point, potentially be undefeated, maybe one loss, who knows? I mean, it's kind of how they were last year. Now, then they played Notre Dame, they got smoked. But I mean, Navy, I think, has got a great draw. And then they got Horvath coming back, Heidenreich coming back. They look like, I mean, based off of what they got, they should be a top team in the American and just in the entire group of 5.
Yeah, I think Navy's going to be really good.
I think
they're going to be underrated. I think you were spot on right there, because it was just like this last year. They were undefeated, and they got to go play Notre Dame, and I think there's a very good chance that they're undefeated again when they go play Notre Dame. And then you're right, Notre Dame. Then you get South Florida. Then you get Memphis. So you get stuff at the end, but I mean, strong chance they're 8-0, and then of course they'll get Army after the championship game, which they got a good chance to be in.
Yeah. Who'd you have?
So,
Did you have Navy as well?
I had Navy. The other one I had was FAU.
I do like.
I think
schedule.
FAU, they get Maryland as their P4 opponent. Maryland is not a world beater. But then they don't really have a stretch where they play more than one or two of the top teams in the American and back to back. They go South Florida and then they go to Navy, which will be tough. But I mean, before that, you're home versus UAB. You're at Rice. You get FIU and FAMU. In the non-conference, you probably beat both of them. Nothing where you're super intimidated by anybody on the schedule. But I agree with you, Navy. I mean, yeah. I'm right there with you.
And you mentioned FAU, so I want to kind of hop on that. I mean, I think, and again, like I said a minute ago, college football is so streaky. You just get on a roll, you're winning games, you're playing good. I mean, I could see FAU being 3-0, and then they got to go play Memphis. Who knows? Maybe they can knock Memphis off. Memphis is going to have some question marks too. They lost a lot of that firepower. Graduated,
Yep.
Hennigan, Rock Taylor. So they got a lot to replace. So if you can get hot right off the bat, get some things rolling, I could see the Owls, making a run. They got some tough matchups, but I wouldn't be shocked at it.
Well, and Zach Kitley and that offense is we know that offense is going to perform.
Move. Yep,
it's absolutely going to perform. So yeah, you get some rhythm, and they could be. I could see them being sort of like, you remember how North Texas was last year?
Yep,
where they'd score like 100 points, they couldn't stop nobody, but you thought they could beat anybody at any time, and then there were games where you thought they could lose to anybody at any time. I think FAU will probably be like that.
And they avoid
similar.
Army as well. So,
yep.
Which was conference champ from a year ago.
Yep. And FAU, we say this every year about FAU. They got guys on that roster. They got talented guys. Trust me, they got a couple guys that can run a 4.5. Okay, on that team.
No question.
So,
and then Veltkamp, right, coming down from Western Kentucky, they're going to be able to throw the ball better than I think they have in many years. So they're one to keep an eye out for. I had one other one that I think could fly under the radar. I think North Texas's schedule is really nice. They play Lamar, Western Michigan, that's a good group of 5 opponent in the MAC. They got to play Washington State. That'll be a tough one. South Alabama's another tough one in the Sun Belt. But they avoid Memphis and they avoid Tulane. So that's two of the toughest opponents in conference from a year. 2 of the tougher opponents from last year. And then they have Army and Navy is on their schedule. But again, Army's got a lot of question marks. So you got to replace Bryson Daly, Kanye Udo. So I think Monken will have them ready to go. But there's just a lot of question marks there, right? So, and then you look at, they play South Florida, but again, how beat up is South Florida going to be after that first 4 or 5 games? So I could see North Texas going on a little bit of a run once they start conference, and Eric Morris has been able to score points. Who's going to be at quarterback? I don't know. But he's been able to reload in the portal every single year after they get poached.
Yeah. And side note, you brought up Army. Have you been seeing Army's weight room videos?
I have not.
I'm missing out on buddy. It. I mean, these guys are out of control. I mean, just tossing whatever they want weight wise on the square. It looks like you're in an old, like, have you ever seen on YouTube or like an old school powerlifting like gym where they're in like a basement and they got knee wraps and chains and shit and stuff like that. I mean that's what it looks like, dude. It looks like the old school, like if you're a weightlifting, a West Side barbell, they're the just weights
dungeon.
And of course now they got an unbelievable facility, but the way that they're working out is like as if they're in a freaking a garage with no heat, no air conditioner. You know what I mean? Mismatched weights and rusted barbells. But boy, they're tossing some weight around.
What is it? Cool heads, hot hearts?
Something like that. You know who else is scheduled? Speaking of, Rice has kind of an easy one. The
Think
way
so?
I mean, it's one of those ones where it just depends on how good Rice is. Like, you get Louisiana to open the year, who's probably going to be one of the favorites in the Sun Belt, but I mean, it's not Boise State.
No
You know what I
question.
mean? You get Houston as your Power 4 opponent. They haven't been very good. Play Navy, you avoid Tulane. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they avoid ECU as well, and they get Memphis at home.
And Rice, I mean, 2 years ago, Rice started out the year phenomenal. They were undefeated I think they got to 5 or 6-0, I think. And then last year they had some expectations and it just didn't really pan out. So
Yeah,
you look for Rice.
Yeah, just again a new coach, new program. It's hard to know what to really expect. We'll deep dive after spring once that portal window kind of opens and closes and see where guys reshift around. Try to do our best to assess the talent, but yeah, I mean on paper, I think Louisiana is going to be good. I think that's going to be a tough game for them. I think Houston physically could be tough. But man, if Rice can come out, I mean, those are winnable games. There's not, like you said, it's not like you're playing Florida, Miami back to back. So we're going to have to get some information on Rice. I don't know what to expect from them.
Yeah. Now, who did you have as like set up? We call it, set up for success or a path to the CFP. Who'd you have there?
I had Memphis.
Me too.
I think Memphis is set up schedule wise. I mean, you have Chattanooga as your non-conference, Georgia State. You should be able to handle them. Troy will be a tough matchup, but I think that's a very winnable game. Then you get Arkansas, who if they beat,
at home,
at home. So if they beat them, that's a great Power 4 win, right? Tulane and Navy are their toughest conference matchups. They avoid Army and UTSA, who's typically a tough team. I just think the way their schedule sets up. Now, again, Memphis has a lot of question marks too. You're replacing a guy who was there, seems like forever, in Seth Hennigan. Rock Taylor, who he mentions, going to the NFL. A lot of guys left that program. Can they replace him? To me, that's the question.
Yeah, and Memphis, it's going to be a completely different roster, but talent-wise, probably last year was their chance. Should have been their chance. But they slipped up a couple of times, and that's kind of been their MO the past couple of years, is they've got this talent, they've got all this stuff, they win the games, and then they lose one that they maybe shouldn't lose. You go look at that Navy game last year, it was wild. They still almost came back and won the thing. But you're right. They'll be favored against Chattanooga. They'll be favored against Georgia State. They'll be favored against Troy. And now they do have to go to Georgia State and go to Troy. I mean, those aren't going to be gimmies by any means. But you get Arkansas at home, and then FAU, Tulsa, UAB. And again, they get South Florida, Tulane. Their 4 hardest games, they get them all at home. South Florida, Tulane, Navy, and Arkansas. They get them all at home. I know the Troy fans in the group are going to say they're going to lose at Troy. Maybe. But, I mean, Memphis, all that NIL money they got going on.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I mean,
you got to think with the $34 million that FedEx, inserted into that program, they're going to be able to go get some guys. I mean, from the sources we have, we know programs are like, we're getting outbid by Memphis damn near every time. Like, we'll go offer a kid, and then Memphis comes right behind us and offers them almost double. So, I mean, Memphis is out there spending cash now.
Yeah. That stretch where they get Tulane at home and then they go to ECU. Then they have here's where it's interesting. Then you have a bye, and then you play Navy on Thanksgiving Day. So we talked about this last year. That last weekend, I hate it so much because you always get some kind of upset on Thanksgiving weekend because there's so many distractions. And you know who is used to playing with a zillion distractions? The Naval Academy. So get ready for that one, Memphis.
Just want to shout out in the chat. TJ says Memphis has a P4O line with 3 of the best running backs in the group of 5. and then plus a four-star receivers. Is that right, TJ? No.
Probably.
We'll see. I mean, it wouldn't shock me.
I mean, that's the thing about Memphis. They've always had talent. Now they can, I mean, theoretically, they can pay for talent that's also like, got some experience or also a little bit more coachable and things like that.
Yeah.
Back in the day, some of them guys were really good at football, very undisciplined. This is when we were playing. This is, 2011, 12, 13 era. Who else? I almost had this as one of the toughest draws because I think it is brutal. But what are your thoughts on Tulane? I thought you were going to go there for this segment.
I had them number 2 as road to the CFP because I think it's manageable. Now they got to replace some guys too, right? But you get Northwestern. To me, Tulane should win that game. Should beat Northwestern. South Alabama, that's going to be a little bit of dogfight. South Alabama's going to be good. They're a good program. You get Duke and then you get Ole Miss. But
Duke game,
that's gonna be something. A lot of storylines of that game. Darian Mensah coming back to NOLA, right? The whole him leaving and Rosensteinfeld, whatever his name.
I wonder if he's going to be in attendance.
If he is,
he better have
the group of 5 guys might have to walk up.
No. I'm worried about him in Uptown. I mean, I am, truthfully.
Yeah. Well, but no, if they can get through that stretch, I know Ole Miss is going to be tough. That is going to be a tough matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be a top 5 team probably.
But they lost Dart. I mean, that's a big piece to that program that they lost. But then they get Tulsa, then they get the bye. Hopefully they can, if they are a little bit banged up through that first 4-game stretch, they can get back healthy. And then maybe go on a run. But if they can get through that, make some noise in conference, if they can win the American with 1 or 2 losses, unless you get another undefeated or 1-loss Boise team, I could see a 1 or 2-loss Tulane American champion being the rep.
Yeah. I mean, it could be very similar to how it was this past year, because if Tulane doesn't drop that game to Memphis, what was that, Thanksgiving weekend?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Which is probably about when the Mensa news probably was circulating.
We gotta get to the bottom of that, because they started to drop quick at one point. And you just wonder if something was going on in the locker room that was starting to circulate.
No, I'll tell you what it is. It started getting cold, and they all started putting Vaseline all over their arms and hands, and started fumbling the ball and dropping passes all night.
That was that game.
Look, you can say what you want about Mensa, but in that Memphis game,
it's true.
I mean, they win that game if they don't fumble in the red zone 3 times or something like that, something wild like that. Now,
and drop balls they were catching all year.
100%. Now I'm with you on that schedule being manageable. It reminds me a lot of the UNLV schedule from a year ago, where they had 3 Power 4 games, which, again, we're going to sit up here and say like Power 4 means nothing, but in the committee's eyes, boy, will it mean something. You beat Northwestern and Duke, they're going to think those are bigger wins than beating Memphis and South Florida, or, Memphis and Navy. They're not, but in the committee's eyes, they will be. In the national media's eyes, they will be. So I think if you're Tulane, you probably got to beat Northwestern and Duke.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to go beat Ole Miss. I think you got to go 2-1 at minimum in those 3. Which I think, they're going to be a younger team. This conference this year now is, we're talking Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida like they're the favorites. They're got different rosters. Tulane's incredibly young. I think Navy's probably the team to really look out for. When we were a long ways away from talking about predictions and picks, but schedule-wise, what you're getting with Navy. It's the only sure thing. And I've been talking about it for 2 years now with the portal and all this stuff. The team that's going to make a run, an unexpected run, is going to be the team that's loaded with seniors that have been there. You'll never, ever, ever have a senior at the Naval Academy that wasn't a freshman at the Naval Academy. You'll never have it. You'll never have a guy that's a senior that didn't play there for 4 years, and potentially 5 years if he was a prep school guy. So if they get a roster full of upperclassmen, they're going to have a damn squad. I mean, look at Army last year.
Well, that's where I was going to go next is, I mean, if there's a team that can reload, I'm going to put my faith in Jeff Monken and those guys. I mean, you lose one of the statistically the best quarterbacks in program history in Bryson Daly, right? Should have been invited to New York, in my opinion. I think he got the shaft on that. Then you lose Kanye Udo to the portal, which I was still confused about. I thought you couldn't leave, but I guess you can leave
if you leave
before your sophomore year. Is that it?
Should be before after your sophomore year is when you have to make
the decision.
I believe that's what it was.
Okay.
In the Air Force case, yeah, because then you'll owe the military those 5 years.
Yeah. So you lose him to the portal, and then you lose, Coach Drinkle to Central Michigan. They got to, they replacing him. I do like their schedule though. Kansas State, that'll be a tough matchup, but it's a winnable matchup in my opinion. You get Tarleton, Air Force, and then Navy are your, non-conference matchups, and they avoid Memphis and South Florida. So if they can replace running back, quarterback, and just keep on rolling like they've been, there's no reason why Army won't be in the conversation as well.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about the situation again, Jeff, late in the season.
I know.
We're going to be sitting here talking about Army
Tim.
and Navy. We're going to be sitting here talking about
chat.
What you say?
So Tim, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but
he left. Yeah. Well, and I know there were some things about there's some flexibility if they end up playing each other in the championship game. But I mean, look, last year, if that game happens 2 weeks prior to that, Army's not hosting the conference championship game. You know what I mean? I mean, look, I mean,
make your case, Sprouse.
Just saying, I've made it enough already. It's just, to me, like, I know I'm in the minority. Like, I know a lot of the talking heads came out like after this season talking about the game being moved, and I don't want it moved for the reasons they want it moved. I think it would mean more. Like, that's what I think it would be like whenever the casuals talk about rivalry weekend and the best rivalries. What they talk about? Iron Bowl, Alabama, Auburn. We talk about Ole Miss, Mississippi State. They talk about Michigan, Ohio State. And then Army Navy is kind of like, yeah, it's got its own weekend, and it's always like mentioned in that conversation. I'm just, in my mind, if that game was last year, rivalry weekend, winner of the game wins the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, hosts the conference championship game, still in the mix for a playoff. I mean, I don't know. I think that has more meaning. I don't know.
I'm with you.
I'm just
on
saying.
Your side.
I'm just talking. No, I'm just saying what I'm thinking. But, yeah, I'm with you on Army. I think their schedule sets up pretty nice. It was something, we talked about it for the it has to do with Army and Navy too, because their game is not necessarily a conference game, but it's difficult for Army, Navy, and Air Force because they're two of their non-conference games are rivalries always. So they got to get up. Like, you see what I'm saying here? They don't have like a team that they don't have to get up for on their schedule. It's either a conference game or Navy or Air Force or Notre Dame usually. So, you can say what you want about their schedule. Like, I know last year when Army was where they were and then they lost to Notre Dame, everybody was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. They didn't play nobody. It's like, I got news for you, buddy. They're getting up for rivalry games damn near every week.
Yeah. It's emotional, man.
Anyway, who else did you have? So you had Memphis and Tulane with a path to the playoff.
Yeah, I think they're the two with the clearest path, in my opinion. But they got to handle business. They got
and look, like, there's teams on here that if they mess around and win some non-conference games, like, oh yeah, they're right there in the mix. UTSA, I just don't think they got much of a shot against Texas A&M, and they're going to have to freaking make up for their performance last year against Texas State when they played Texas State. But their schedule outside of Texas A&M is not
Well, that's what I was
terrible.
going to say is you got the tough matchup in A&M, right? On the road, you get home against Texas State, you get Incarnate Word. I think it's a tough group of 5 matchup, in my opinion. You got to go, I believe, on the road at Colorado State. Is that right? Yeah. You're on the road at Colorado State. So, I mean, game you should win. And if you lose to Texas A&M right off the bat, it's better, they say, to lose early, right, than lose late. They got question marks. Traylor has been very vocal about support and NIL. I thought Owen McCown at times played well last year, but then other times he didn't. He's got to become more, more consistent. They avoid Memphis and Navy, which plays in their favor, and they get Tulane, ECU, and Army all in the Alamo Dome. So I actually really like their schedule. I have a lot of question marks about how they're going to play. They got to get back to running the ball. That was kind of their thing. And then go and play action, throwing deep to those great receivers. So I think a lot rests on McCown's shoulders if he's the guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you look, I mean, right, like Tulsa, they got a brutal stretch about halfway through the season. Oklahoma State, Tulane, Memphis, they're off, and then at ECU. I mean, it's going to be, Trey Lamb. Now they start Abilene Christian, New Mexico State. Should be able to get on in the win column 2 in a row. But then, I mean, I didn't even mention they're Navy at home, at Oklahoma State, Tulane at home, at Memphis, at ECU. I mean, just that's as tough as it gets in the conference.
No question. And again, it just comes down to health and availability. Can you make it through that stretch? Can you pick off a couple of those conference teams without getting too banged up? I don't know. It's going to be tough. I mean, Oklahoma State, that'll be a physical game. You mentioned, Tulane and Memphis back to back.
And then you get at the end of the season, you get Oregon State and Army back to back.
Yep.
I mean, Oregon State's not anybody very good, but I mean, they'll be favored against Tulsa more than likely.
Yeah, that's brutal for Trey Lamb and the boys.
Temple, and then Temple's got a tough one too. Temple, see, this is, can I say, okay, this is not as meant to be disrespectful towards Temple at all. And Temple's getting a new coach. They got Casey Keeler, right? So, so look out for Temple. But, Oklahoma is playing Temple. Oklahoma ain't going to go play Memphis. You know what I mean? See what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
But Temple's got, am I reading that right? Are they playing Oklahoma in Philly?
They are.
Hey, man.
Shout out to Oklahoma for making
if we can get the Philadelphia Eagle fans on board with Temple, and if we can get the Buffalo Bills fans on board with the Buffalo Bulls, I mean, we could have 2 of the most hostile collegiate environments in the country. I don't understand why they won't do it. I mean, and you can say what you want about winning and all this stuff, but Eagles fans and Bills fans have been miserable for a long time. Bills fans especially. I mean, they're winning now, but you want to talk about, a fandom of losing often has been the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Get behind the Bulls. Temple, Philly, Eagles, get out there and throw snowballs at Santa Claus at a Temple game. But get Oklahoma at home. They're at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's going to be pretty damn good, I think, this year. It's going to be tough sledding for them.
No, I'm with you. Then we got UAB fighting Trent Dilfers. I think it's
they got to go to Tennessee week 4. They got to go to Navy week 2. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, I think their non-conference is manageable outside of Tennessee. I mean, you get Alabama State, UConn, and Akron. I think you can go 2-1 probably in that stretch. But you get an Army and Navy both early in the season.
You're getting Army, Navy, and Tennessee in your first 5 weeks of the year. I mean, your depth is just going to be a big concern at that point in the year. And UAB fans aren't going to want to hear it, but Trent Dilfer's going to tell you about it, I'm sure, when it comes up. So, I mean, but it's real. I mean, it is real.
Yeah. It is. Before we get into the conference games and non-conference games, did we say something ill about UTSA? Max the Meme says he disagrees with what we said about UTSA. We said we like their schedule. It's tough off the rip. The question mark at the biggest, most important position to me. was McCown.
Well,
If he plays
we probably
well, I think
said
they
they're
can go on a
unlikely. I
run.
mean, I think I said they're unlikely to beat Texas A&M, and then I said they're going to have to. I mean, I don't think I said they're not going to do this, but they're going to have to show up against Texas State.
Yeah.
Unlike they did this past year. I thought we said we kind of liked it.
I did too.
I don't know. We have to watch the tape.
Yeah,
See what he says in the chat. But as I said, we talked about everybody, right? I mean, this is a great conference. They got great schedules. Again, I said this about the Mountain. Look, no shot at the Sun Belt, no shot at the MAC, no shot at Conference USA, but you're going to have to be undefeated to make the playoff over a 1 or 2 loss American champion or a 1 or 2 loss Mountain West champion. Fair or not. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And then unfortunately for the Sun Belt, your conference is so damn balanced. We talk about this every year that ain't nobody going undefeated in that conference.
And if you do, you're going to be the rep.
And if you do, you're making the playoff. Yeah. And you know, the MAC has been pretty damn balanced as of late. And then Conference USA, you just got such a bad rap after Liberty runs the table and just gets bludgeoned by Oregon. I mean, and that's going to stick with you until you do something else.
Look, when the Blue Raiders go undefeated this year, going to be the rep.
I don't know if my little heart can handle the emotions of my alma mater going on national TV. I hate it so much.
No, I don't like it.
Whether it's a midweek game and it's a Tuesday and you turn on the TV and there's an empty stadium and people are texting me, Sprouse Middle's on. I'm like, no, it's a repeat. Turn that off.
Surely, if we were a one-loss team or something, oh God, I'd pray the stadium would fill up.
Well, give me your biggest conference game. Now, there's a few of them, but what do you got?
Yeah, I had a couple. I'll just go with the championship rematch. Army at Tulane, October 18th, I think is going to be a big matchup. A lot of implications for both teams. It's later in the year. It's gonna shift the conference, I think, one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Navy at Memphis for me.
Yep.
Thanksgiving Day, final week of the season. I think that's a massive one. A lot of implications, whether it be for hosting the championship game, or going to it at all. And then the other one I had was kind of the game that really screwed everything up last year, and that's Tulane-Memphis, at Memphis this year. I mean, Tulane was going to host the championship game and, I mean, had an argument to make the playoff, even with Boise State doing what they did. They had an argument Tulane did for getting in over Arizona State or the Big 12 champion, and then they lost to Memphis. And then, of course, they got beat real bad by Army, but I think that's going to be another big one.
I got two for you that kind of fly under the radar for me, but are going to be big matchups. I think North Texas at Army week 4 is a big conference game for both programs. Whoever wins that is going to set themselves up on a nice little run. And it's going to change some things in that conference. And then ECU against Memphis, November 15th. I don't know why. I just have this feeling about ECU. It's a gut feeling. I could be wrong. I think they're going to be good. I don't think they're going to be easy outs, and that's going to be a tough game for Memphis. And if ECU can knock that off, who knows? Pirates could find themselves late in the season making a run at the conference championship.
Well, ECU, I mean, it's never an easy out. It's always a hostile environment when you go there, and you let them start winning some games, and it's already a place that's rocking and hostile. Let them start winning some games. Let them have a chance at this. See, and that's where I'm all about the expanded playoff, right? Because let them be 7-8 weeks into the season and feel like they got a real shot at it. That place is going to be absolutely cracking. What about non-conference? I mean, there's so many good ones. So many good ones. For me, number one, Duke at Tulane, and that's for everything except for football. Is what that one is for. I don't think you'll see a Tulane crowd that fired up for a game.
Hostile.
That hostile. I mean, the Tulane crowd is it's not an ECU crowd. You know what I mean? It's like, look, Tulane is what it is. It's a medical school, very bougie, very, very wine and cheese, if you will. Okay. Not when Duke and Darian Mensah show up. It's not going to be.
No, that election.
That was my number one.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of them. I didn't really rank them in specific order, but obviously, I think the App State Charlotte game is going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a great, environment because both are great fan bases, right? And they both show up for their team. I think Army at Kansas State, I think is going to be a big game. If Army can get that win, sets them up real nice to make a run. And then I got a couple more. I'll let you go. I know I'm sure you got a couple more too, but I think that ECU BYU game is going to be a big one.
Well, see, I was going to go ECU at NC State, I think, to start the year. I think it's a massive one. I think tone setting. A lot of these are tone setters, right? Charlotte and App I have too because it's two teams that, hey, look, they did not live up to expectations last year, either one of them. And kind of a bragging rights game. I mean, I'm sure if you ask one fan base, they'll say it is a rivalry. The other one will say it's not a rivalry. We don't think blah, blah, blah. But I promise both teams are going to want that one. And then, I mean, we talked about this when we talked Mountain West, but Boise State at South Florida is a monster. I mean, that is, Boise State, we talk about this all the time as the standard, right? In the group of five. I mean, they are, when you talk about winning in the last 3 decades, it's Boise State, Alabama, and Ohio State, and then nobody else. And, South Florida, you go back. I mean, South Florida is the team that also got up in the top 3 in the country for a little bit. They had 2006, 2007 season. Mm-hmm. And they got the expectations, right? And, you can't, if you're South Florida, you can't look ahead to Florida. You can't look ahead to Miami because the Boise State one's maybe the most important one. I don't know. I think if you ask the fans, they probably rather beat Florida. I actually did DM with a South Florida fan who said Florida would be the one that they wanted. But, I mean, of course, you got the in-state recruiting and bragging rights, but Boise State, I mean, that's who you're striving to be. I mean,
no question.
So and then you got to mention whether you call it a conference game or not. You got to mention Army Navy, but they might be playing in the championship game. So I don't know.
Yeah, and then I had Tulane at Ole Miss on there just because it's a big matchup. Hopefully Tulane can reload and Summer will have them ready.
Yeah, Memphis and Arkansas is another one because that's if Memphis can be. If Memphis can play to their ability, that game might tell you whether or not they're making the playoffs. I mean, really. Yeah. But that's it. Anybody else you got on there?
That's about it. I mean, there's probably a couple more we could squeeze in there, but I think I think we hit the big ones.
Yeah. Stay tuned, by the way. We're working on getting ECU head coach Blake Harrell on in the coming weeks. Should be really good because, yeah, I'm with you on them, Jeff. I just have this kind of feeling that they're due for a big season, and it's one of those ones I just want to see Dowdy Ficklin at its capacity for a good team. And
you called it last year with him. You said he deserved the shot and deserved that job, and
I did. You're right, I did, Jeff.
You're welcome. Give me a little pat on the back there, pal.
Yeah, mark that down. As soon as we get him on, I'm gonna make sure he knows that I am the one that got that ball rolling. I think because we always say, right, interim head coach in that first game, but typically they'll win the first one and then it's like a massive drop off, just gets smoked the next. And they just kept winning, and he earned it. I mean, he did. He earned the right to interview for it, and the administration felt he earned the right to get the job, and he did. But anyway, hey, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We got voicemails, Jeff.
Just one. I should hold it probably till we do the Sunbelt schedule reveal, but we're not because our good friend Josh Bevel called in. But give us a call, man. You got to call us out. We did something wrong, said something wrong. You got a hot take, got some inside information on your program. 615-900-4286. We'll play it on the next show. We go live and we'll check in Statesboro, Georgia.
Group of five guys, Josh Bevel here. Just wanted to talk about a little Georgia Southern scheduling. Now I know y'all are doing some, conference schedule breakdowns, so, just kind of play it whenever you do the Sun Belt thing or kind of whenever y'all are feeling it. It doesn't matter to me. But anyway, I know the universities, they don't really set the schedules, dates or times, I guess more or less pick the teams, more so the out of conference of who we're going to play. But, man, Georgia Southern's got a tough schedule this year, but I love it. We got a tough road schedule. Marshall, App State, Arkansas State, JMU, Fresno State, and USC all on the road this year. We got Jacksonville State, Southern Miss, Maine, Georgia State, Coastal Carolina, and Old Dominion. If you just look at the teams, tough schedule, and that's the way it should be. That's the way the Sun Belt is, because I was looking at some of the other team schedules like Marshall, whatever. Everybody's got a tough schedule, and I love that. Group of 5 is really, it's starting to come along. People are really starting to get, oh my gosh, these teams are good too. These are good ball programs. I can still go to the next level being at these ball programs. But, preaching to the choir a little bit. I know y'all say the same thing. But anyway, my main bone to pick is with App State's on a Thursday this year. They're moving it, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks earlier than what we normally play, which I don't like whatsoever. As a Southern fan, I'm a firm believer that we should always play Georgia State on a Thursday, whether it be home or away. Don't care the week, usually middle of the season, and be a televised game. Georgia Southern, Georgia State, rivalry game. I think it should be on a Thursday. And Georgia Southern App State should be on rivalry weekend of college football season, and, no disrespect to Marshall, but we're playing them on that weekend. I'm not saying Marshall's not a rival, but they're not a rival like App State is to us, like Middle Tennessee and WKU, like, that kind of thing. We need all of those on rivalry weekend, but it is what it is. I hope Group of 5 guys, I hope y'all can make it to a game this year in Statesboro. I always got a ticket for you guys and your families. Call me up, come to Statesboro. God bless the Group of 5 guys. Hail Southern.
Appreciate it, Josh.
Our boy Turner West going to the Buffalo Bills.
I didn't see that.
Leaving old Georgia Southern.
Dude.
Shout out to Turner, man. Love that guy. That's a Buffalo.
Too cold.
Yeah.
Good opportunity for him, though.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just kidding.
But back to what Josh was saying. That's a tough. You talking about a tough schedule? Georgia Southern, it's brutal. Got to go all the way out to Fresno. They're going to just stay out there, right? Have to.
Yeah, because it's USC then Fresno, right? Or Fresno then USC.
So they're just going to stay out on the West Coast. I'd imagine you're not going to fly back.
Well, the good news is we know that they have a very rational and understanding fan base that's going to be very accepting if they somehow don't manage to go 2-0 against USC and Fresno State. Poor Josh and Lenny B are going to be damn fighting. They're going to be like that meme, the guy with swords to their throat or whatever, trying to defend Helton after those 2 games. Yeah. Oh, man. That'd be brutal.
We love you.
Appreciate you, though, Josh.
We love
Wish we could be getting over there to the Gata Jam again this year, but a lot going on in the household over here.
Yeah, I got 2 kids in sports. We're full tilt right now. Just came from, that's why we're an hour late tonight. My son's basketball game. First round of the playoffs, won.
Really?
Yeah. Finishing that up this week. We're in baseball practice. Nico's playing flag football and baseball practice. So we're like, let's get ready to get going.
Yeah, we got opening night this coming Saturday for the T-ball.
That's early.
Is it? We got an opening. They do a big opening ceremony Friday night, and then our first game is Saturday. Let me tell you something, Jeff.
Tell me. Then we'll get
the
out
Marlins of the Northern Little League. You want to talk about an improvement from night to night? We got a squad. Well, I like the squad. Now, we'll see what these other guys are dealing with.
Have you busted out yet? The Eric Spoelstra.
No,
Go of the rope.
no. I mean, pregame speech. No, I got some speeches ready for game day. I'm going to go Spoelstra. Don't let go of the row speech. Of course, I'm going to go the Herb Brooks, not tonight speech from Miracle. I got some. I gotta go remember the Titans on a few of them.
There you go.
I'm sure. And then I'll probably give the Chet Stedman to Henry Rowan Gardner speech. You got to have the attitude. You're going to give that speech here one night too. But we'll see, man. It's going to be fun, but we're rocking and rolling. Hey, man, thank you guys, everybody, for jumping on the chat. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it with your family and friends, leave a 5-star rating and a review. Follow us on all the social platforms at Group of Five Guys. Long live the Group of Five Guys. God bless the Group of Five. Have a great week.